So as I discussed, this is Scenario S47 all set up. Well, it's got the Italians set up. So it is, looking at the scenario card, Sicily, 10th of July 1943. There we have the Americans coming from the bottom edge of the board, the south, and I've set the Italians up on the north side of the board. I have set up the scenario as per the scenario. It doesn't matter that it's an ASL starter kit scenario. Retro should handle that just absolutely fine. And then the Americans in turn one will enter from this side of the board. There are, as you can see, what I've done to sort of test out some of the elements of retro, I have put the vast majority of the Italians not in stacks. They are spread out throughout the board. The Americans' job is to cause casualties or to break them where they are in a building where there's two hex buildings. So, for example, that's why I put them in there and there and there and there and so forth and so forth. There are a couple of weapons that in particular note. A lot of the Italians do have machine guns, both light machine guns and medium machine guns, etc. The Americans have some artillery pieces that will enter the board, as do the Italians as well. So the Italians, for example, have an artillery piece here and here. I've deliberately set up some of the Italian guns. So, for example, there's a gun covering that row of hexes or column of hexes there. Same applies on this side of the board here, and then rows across here. And one of the rules that Retro has is a hesitation rule, which is quite an interesting rule. It's a very straightforward rule. So as I play through each turn, at the end of each turn I'll stop and I'll talk about how the battle is progressing, and I may well talk about some of the specifics of some of the mechanics, some of the rules of Retro as I do so. Just so I'm absolutely clear, I am not for 1 minute saying Retro is a replacement for ASL Starter Kit. That's absolutely not the case. I just wanted to play. I haven't played Retro in a little while. It sits on the bookshelf, so I thought I'd give it a spin tonight. It doesn't take long. One of the big differences between Retro and ASL Starter Kit and full fat ASL, as it were, is the games are much, much quicker. And this is this is a reasonable size starter kit scenario. There are a lot more counters than a lot of ASL starter kits, so I thought it was a good opportunity to play this scenario, but with the Retro rules, and see how it pans out. So it is a 6-turn scenario. Often when I'm playing solo, I'll play an extra turn. Just sort of, for me, eases the burden of being so conscious about making all the best decisions all the time. But certainly play the first 6 turns and we'll see how things go. And if I want to, I'll play a 7th turn. As I said, I'm playing the game solo. I kind of do what I want, really, when you're playing games solo, to be honest. But looking forward to it. So with no further ado, I'll do the first turn, talk about what happened, and go from there. So after the first turn, the Americans have come onto the board, and there's already been quite a bit of fierce fighting between the two sides. The Americans on this side are sort of moving up. They were able to put some defensive fire down in their turn against this unit here. And the Italians, the only defensive fire that they were able to do anything with, or indeed their own direct firing in their own turn, was against this unit here. And it's an interesting mechanic. If you get a certain die roll, you have to do an AAR test. You test against the rating of the nation, and if they fail, you have to replace the counter with a lower quality counter, which they did. And the Rangers here took a severe beating, and they're in an orchard and come under heavy fire. And as a result, they are now broken, and they were of a lower quality, having failed their ELR. The Americans, however, using this machine gun here, were able to to hit this unit here and cause that. So this side of the board here, Americans are manoeuvring up. Both the Italian artillery pieces here and here tried to put down some fire in the buildings right next to them here and here, but to no avail. Didn't get the dice rolls that they needed, and it would have been quite catastrophic if they had. Definitely on this first turn, every time the Italians rolled 2 dice, they always seemed to be getting a 10 or a 9 or something. So very bad luck on the Italians in the dice rolling, to be honest. I think if the Italians had got a better dice roll, they would probably already start inflicting more casualties on the Rangers, the US Rangers here. But never mind. In the next turn, the Americans will be using. They're going to keep the mortar. I think this is a mortar and an artillery piece. All the way around, I can't remember. They're going to keep those static, and you try and use them. Yeah, there's the artillery gun there. They're going to try and use them against the opposing sides. Try and engage in some close combat, maybe on this side of the board, and They got to, for this scenario to work for the Rangers, they've got to push up really hard. Got to keep moving, and hopefully inflicting a broken unit every time they fire, for them to stand any chance of winning the scenario. So we'll see. It's that turn. I stopped because of making the video, but it doesn't take long. I think that probably took no more than 10 minutes to do that turn, and there's quite a few counters. So one of the advantages of retro, one of the reasons people like it, is it's a very fluid game system. It moves at quite a brisk pace, which is good for those who want to play that sort of game in that sort of tempo. So we'll do another turn. So at the end of turn number 2, it's quite a bit of action between the two forces. So if we start this side of the board, the Americans try to engage the Italians in what they were hoping was be close combat, but in the Italian defensive fire phase, they were able to break this unit here. Now there is a leader there who's unbroken, so the Americans will try and rally that in their next turn. The Americans here engaged the Italians in close combat in this building here and was successful, so that Italian unit is out of the game. The same here, Americans engaged close combat, and that counters out of the game. Here, as a result of the close combat, both units basically are out of the game. You roll for both sides in close combat, and both are removed. So the Americans have suffered a casualty of units there. And what else do we have? These are still broken. These Italians are broken. This American unit here was hit hard by the Italian artillery, and have taken a broken here, and they're going to have to rally, and then they're in their next rally phase. The Americans on this side of the board, they were able to eliminate the crew from both these artillery pieces here successfully. Well, eliminate and break them, but they can be self-rallied in their rally turn. So the Americans have taken, have knocked out or broken quite a few units, and they are making their way up the board northwards through the town as their mission is to do so. The Italians give them quite a bit of resistance. We're a third of the way through the game now at the end of turn 2. The Americans definitely, everything needs to go the American way. That's what I would describe it as. It feels like to stand any chance of success. I think it'll be at the minute it feels quite close between the two sides. They have this unit here was pushed back and needs to rally. So, and this will be one of the issues that the Americans will have, is that like normal ASL, rallying just eats up your turns, as it were. Do you know what I mean? So depends on how successful, of course, you are, but we'll see. So turn number 3 next. At the end of turn number 3, the Americans have been able to, again, keep moving up the board. However, the Americans did suffer a lot of hesitation So these units here and here, for example, I've turned them the other way around, wrong way around, as it were, to represent that. And what hesitation is, as you try in your movement turn, move into a clear hex that the enemy could fire on, you roll dice to see if that happens, and if you fail, you can't move, and which they did. It's quite a simple rule. You just basically you need like a 6. So, for example, this unit here wanted to move into here, and then rolled hesitation. They got the 6, so they couldn't. There are some modifiers to that as well. So it can be, you think, oh, a 6, that's hardly ever going to happen. Well, it happened twice in the in that turn, for example. The other thing again that happened, Americans suffering the ELR rating. We've got 2 units that have failed their ELR. So again, they've been reduced reduced down, as it were. Americans making some morale checks. So at the minute, as we can see, we've got quite a few Italian units still in the game. So here, here and here and here, Americans progressing towards them on that side of the board. On this side of the board, only a couple of Italian units left for the Americans to try and mop up and see if they can take them out. All that really is happening to the Americans themselves is just losing time, not really taking any casualties too much. The fire effectiveness of per unit between the Italians and the American Rangers is non-comparable. What is happening is the Americans just running out of time. However, have 3 turns left, including the next turn. If we look at the first 3 turns of the game, it's probably comparable. So we'll see if the Americans can take all their objectives within the last 3 turns. I think they will. I think that a lot of the dice rolls, in fairness, have gone the American way for the vast majority, even with the hesitations, even with the ELR losses, the rating losses. I still think the Americans should be able to take their objectives. They have had to take some gambles. So they have had to move out into open terrain, for example, and hence the hesitation, die rolls that were required. If they'd have succeeded those hesitation die rolls, this unit would have been able to engage in close combat with that unit there, for example. Then they would have been a lot more successful, but they didn't. So that's the way the game has gone. So yeah, do the next turn. End of turn 4. The Americans are struggling a little bit here. They're making progress, but they've still got some defiant Italian units here, giving them what for. No real casualties. Here, the Italians managed to repel the American advances here. So, again, broken units here. They'll be able to rally, hopefully, but stopping their advances here. Close combat here, and the Americans defeated this counter here, so I'll remove that. And here, on this other side, the Americans defeated these Italians here in close combat, so I should duly remove that. However, on right here, the Italians defended valiantly against the attacking Americans and defeated the Americans. So the Italians have still got that hex there. Numerous broken units. There is an optional rule in Retro to allow 1 unit to self-rally. I haven't used it because I felt it was a little gamey. I think you could have the Italians just self-rallying their units, and which would be fine. Maybe I should have included it, I'm not sure, but I haven't. I am playing the game solo, so I'm playing for the story, for the narrative, the experience more than anything. But we can see the Americans are making their way across the town, overall successfully, but they are meeting sort of stiff pockets of resistance. And those pockets of resistance, the Italians have still got teeth. They've still been able to halt the Americans in their tracks. And those are, that sort of feeling, that story is playing out through the mechanics of the hesitation and some of the combat mechanics, which I'm very much enjoying. So 2 turns left for the Americans to see if they can flush out the rest of the Italian units. But the Italians not giving it up easy, so we'll see. At the end of turn 5, the Americans have had a really hard time of it. The Italians managed to break this unit here, so they'll need to rally in their own turn next. The Americans have been able to put some fire on these Italians here, but haven't been able to do anything, and failed their hesitation roll, so they weren't able to advance across the open area here. The Italians here have broken this unit here, and they've broken this unit, this stack here as well. The Americans were able to break that unit. Even with all this fire, the Italians have been able to hold on to this building here successfully. And then on this side, right on this side of the map, the Americans are making good an advance onto this unit here and hope to engage them in close combat. Now, that was the penultimate turn, so it's one more turn. And I think that's technically not true. The Americans could win. I'm just looking at the board. The Americans could win. I think it's going to be very, very hard, but they could. So we're going to stop filming and play this last turn and see how it all pans out. So I finished the game, and in the end, it was an Italian victory. The Americans couldn't quite beat the Italians for every objective hex that they had to do. So how it worked out, these Americans failed their test to see if they could cross into open ground, which they failed. The hindrance test, I think it's called. And I'm going to check in the rules now, actually, as I say that. And it's quite an interesting mechanic. The hesitation, that's what it is. Sorry, the hesitation test. They failed that. They're just slightly off camera there. So as you go across open ground in front of the guns, you have to make a test to see if they'll do it, and if they don't, they'll return. Basically, they're coming under fire. So it's like the defensive fire, but it's much simplified mechanic for retro. They failed. This unit here took casualties, were broken as they tried to assault this hex here. Same for here. So both Americans there tried to assault these building hexes and failed. This stack here failed. They took fire on the assault and broken. However, this unit did get into the building and close combat ensued, and they won. So the Italians lost this building here in the end. However, they managed to break both those 2 stacks on the American side. And then across the board on the other side here, the Americans managed to get in, assault successfully, close combat, and beat the Italians there. So in the end, how the game transpired, Americans pushed hard across the map in through the village, or town, sorry, I should say, but just weren't quite able to take every objective hex that they wanted to, and took quite a significant amount of casualties, and whether units broken, combat ineffective. As a result, Italians bravely just defending to the last, and were able just to basically on this side of the board, were able to succeed and stop the Americans from taking those victory hexes that they needed to do. So it was. I'm really pleased at how the game shaped up. It's very dynamic. There's lots of could have gone either way. I felt the retro rule set. Let's put on here. Is, as I said at the beginning, this is not a replacement for ASL Starter Kit. It is a completely different rule set. You do need ASL or ASL Starter Kit to play this. It refers to the rulebook of those games, but you need a game. I think you can play this with other tactical games. So it is a variant rule set. I think you could. I know I've tried it with Panzer Grenadier with success. I tried it once. I can remember years ago trying it with Combat Commander, and it didn't work as well as ASL does. So It is a variant rule set. It is designed for people who have ASL and don't play it anymore because of the level of complexity of ASL. If that's you, you should have a look into Retro. I really enjoyed this game. There are advantages to this system, I think, especially playing the game solo. What I will do is I'll probably do a few more AARs using Retro and talk more about the game, and then I'll do a full breakdown on what Retro is and what Retro isn't, who it's for and who it's not for, in my opinion, things I like about it, etc. Because it's not for everybody. ASL Starter Kit is a wonderful game. You don't need this to enjoy ASL Starter Kit, but it is a variant and it has advantages, the level of complexity being the main one. There are a few others as well, actually, but I really enjoyed this. Didn't take long to play, an hour tops, and it's quite a big game for an ASL Start Kit. ASL Start Kit wise, there are quite a few units, and there are artillery guns. There's no armor, there's no vehicles or anything like that. I enjoyed it. Very close game, lots of narrative, lots of action on both sides. So yeah, looking forward to playing another scenario. I am tempted. This is ASL Scenario S47. I flipped the card over. It's just off camera. I may well play ASL Scenario S48 and play the next one. You can link the two, which is quite interesting. I'm not going to do that, but you can. Looks like S48. It's the same map. Italians and Americans again. Looks like the Italians have some armor, and the Americans have some anti-tank guns and bazookas. So that will be quite entertaining. So I might well do that next and see how Retro handles things like armored fighting vehicles, and anti-tanks and stuff like that. So yeah, looking forward to that. If you have played this scenario, if you've played Retro, interested in your thoughts, please put some thoughts into the comments section as always. And yeah, thanks for watching as ever. Thank you.